Hey guys, what's going on? Back here today with another video, actually a response video just to change things up. So this is a thread created by Frederick Zunko from Australia. He came up with a cool idea just to celebrate Australia Day, the idea of showing some albums by Australian rock, like hard rock and heavy metal bands or metal related bands. So that's what I'm going to do today. I think it's a really cool idea. If you haven't subscribed to Frederick's channel, definitely check it out. I actually discovered his channel because through him doing a response video to a thread that I created. So that's what's really cool about this community. You find new contacts through threads. But yeah, his channel is really cool. He puts out a lot of videos and he's a really nice guy. So definitely go and check out his channel and give him a sub. I'll leave a link in the description. Now, talking about this, I have done a similar video before, actually called Australian Metal Gems. This was a while ago, like over a year ago, when my friend Ken suggested that from Ken's Death Metal Crypt. He said it would be a good idea to show some Australian bands which people might not know. But in any event, a lot of people probably weren't subscribed by that stage. I'll link those videos as well if you want to check them out. But today is going to be more of a show and tell, like not describing in too much detail if I've spoken about these albums before, because you can check out the earlier videos. But there are some that I haven't talked about, so I will discuss them a little bit. Okay, so let's get straight into it. So Australian hard rock and heavy metal releases. So to start off, you can't include an Australian metal video without AC/DC, so obviously classic band, probably the most famous band to ever come from Australia in this kind of genre anyway. And I'm showing Fly on the Wall. I do own quite a few of their albums, but it would take all day if I showed all of them. Also a few records, but I decided to show this one because I think it's a criminally underrated AC/DC album. A lot of diehard fans say this one was the Rush job. I just disagree. It's fantastic. So many great songs on this, like Fly on the Wall, Shake Your Foundations, First Blood, probably my favorite track, Sink the Pink, Hell or High Water, just so catchy, great album. So to kick things off, AC/DC with Fly on the Wall. Okay, now the rest of the releases I'm going to show today, they're all CDs. So first of all, we have Anatomy with The Witches of Dathomir. So if you're not familiar, Anatomy, I think were a Black Death metal band from Melbourne, Victoria. So when I say that, I don't think they're around anymore, but this was in the 90s. By the way, most of the releases I'm showing you today are from the 90s because I'm of that generation where I was in my teens and like very early 20s, like in the late 90s. So a lot of the bands today are coming from that era. But yeah, this is really good. It's got the harshness of black metal crossed with the ferocity and brutality of death metal. I first heard the song Just One More Nail on a Australian metal compilation. That's what got me into this band. But if you like really ferocious, caustic black death, that kind of stuff, definitely check them out. So that's Anatomy with The Witches of Dathomir. All right, up next, another Australian band, this time from sunny Queensland. This is ASTRIAAL with Summoning the Essence of Ancient Wisdom. So I have spoken about this album before as well. ASTRIAAL were a melodic black metal band. I don't think they're around anymore, but really good, underrated band. What made them unique was they had a lot of atmosphere in their music, but in order to rely on that, they created that with clean guitars. So there weren't any synthesizers or flutes or anything like that, but they just had a unique sound. And I thought, in a way, it sounds strange to say this, but it was like very Australian, that clean guitar sound. But really, really good band. And what was the song? Again, I heard a song on a compilation which got me into it. That was As Mist Befell the Ruins. And it's kind of reminiscent a bit of some melodic Norwegian black metal like Windeer and stuff like that. So definitely worth checking out. Like just another underground gem. So that's ASTRIAAL with Summoning the Essence of Ancient Wisdom. Oh yeah, and you see here I got copy 461 of 500. So there you go. All right. Up next, this is another band I've spoken about. Here we have BALTAK. So I've got two albums by BALTAK. You see the titles on the back are in Cyrillic because BALTAK is a Macedonian band, like a Macedonian Australian. The guy, but it was a one-man project by a guy. He was, I think, Macedonian born Australian. Yeah, and his name was Gorgoroth, not to be confused by the bands. But he released these two albums and a few others, I think, where it's like just very blinding and intense black metal. Kind of has a Hellenic sounding edge, but like the chordal patterns and structures are very different. But it's just like really out of control, insane, blasting the whole time, shrieky vocals. Sometimes it can, like some people say, it gets a bit repetitive, but there are certain moments on these albums which just sound really good. My favorite one is probably this one, which is Macedonian Darkness and Evil. Two great tracks on this for me are Umiram Sega and Meca Kopfa. Sorry about my Macedonian pronunciation. And then this one, what's this one called? Zaginatiot Grad, The Lost City, was also good, and this one had a more of a European feel, so like it was incorporating elements of like sort of Swedish black metal, but really, really good and interesting. This is another underground gem, so that's BALTAK. Okay, up next, a band that needs no introduction, like a cornerstone of Australian metal music. This is Destroyer 666 with Unchain the Wolves. So I have spoken about this band a few times. This is just classic Australian black thrash metal. They've achieved worldwide fame and had a whole spate of releases. Their fame is deserved because they are a great band. It's actually really, really good. And this is probably my favorite album because it was the one I bought in the late 90s, you know, when I was getting into this music quite a lot. And I actually played this on Australia Day, which was just a few days ago. Yeah, and you can't get more Australian than this with songs like Australian and Antichrist. Other favourite tracks for me are Genesis to Genocide, Satan's Hammer, Tyranny, Unchain the Wolves, and Onward to Arctica. By the way, I've really got to get more albums by this band. I really want to get Phoenix Rising, because that's another classic, you know, with Lone Wolf Winter. I also really like Violence is the Prince of this World. But honestly, you can't go wrong with this band. Just classic Aussie black thrash, Destroyer 666. Okay, what have we got next? Up next, Drowning the Light with The Land of the Dead Sun. Sorry, I hesitated there because I wasn't familiar with the title just for a moment. Yeah, so I've spoken about this in a collection update as well. Drowning the Light is a primarily one-man black metal project from Australia. Obviously from Australia, from Kiama, which is interesting. That's sort of like the coast of New South Wales, so like an area with a lot of beaches, nice scenery and everything, so it kind of makes sense. This was the album where he collaborated with some Finnish musicians when he was in Finland, so it was kind of like a super group album where he collaborated with, I think it was Stormheit and Shatral from Horner, also the guy from Anal Blasphemy. I'll show the picture actually. But yeah, you see this was a collaborative effort, but if you're not familiar, Drowning the Light is sort of very raw, primitive black metal. It's got an old school vibe and aesthetic, but just very atmospheric and emotive music. It's really good. This one, to be honest, is not it's not my favorite, and he's released a shitload of albums, so there's so many out there. I need to actually get more. This one is, you know, it's decent, definitely, but he's done much better albums than this. But anyway, that's Drowning the Light with The Land of the Dead Sun. Really cool band. Okay, coming up next, this is a band I've also spoken about quite a lot. Lord Chaos with Thorns of Impurity. You see here, I've got the label where I bought it at Beat Disc in Parramatta, so very Australian. Yep, so Lord Chaos are sort of a symphonic black metal band. They use a lot of keyboards for atmosphere, and I think one of their primary influences was probably Emperor, but it's perhaps not as classical sounding, more just the use of keyboards in general. But just really blasting, blinding, intense black metal, very atmospheric. It's really good. So yeah, Lord Chaos, and they're from Sydney with Thorns of Impurity. Okay, all right. Up next, here is MYRDDRAAL with Blood on the Mountain. So I've also spoken about this one before, but MYRDDRAAL were a black metal band from Canberra, and they sort of played atmospheric black metal they don't use keyboards, but it was sort of like a lot of acoustic guitars, and they have some interludes where it's just some really atmospheric acoustic passages. It seems very nature worshipping. Like whenever I listen to this album, it just like reminds me of Australian bushland at nighttime, that kind of thing. So invoking really good atmosphere, some great tracks on this, and also some like chants and clean vocals which make it sound really atmospheric. Like some of my favorite songs on this: Jumai's World, Daughter of the Night, Blood on the Mountain is a great track, really good. So yeah, this band, I'm not sure if they released many albums actually, but this is, to me, it's really an underground gem. So if you get a chance, check them out. That's MYRDDRAAL with Blood on the Mountain. Okay. Oh, I've got a shitload to go through, but not doing too badly. Okay, now this is one I've never spoken about because in the Australian Metal Gems video I forgot to include it. So here we have Nocturnal with Nocturnal. And so it's a self-titled album. This is a one-man band, was a one-man band from South Australia. I'm not sure exactly where, I think Adelaide, but what you have here, this is basically Burzum worship. So if you like early Burzum, like the self-titled album and also Detsom Engang Va, you will really like this. It's got, you know, that kind of like slow, dreamy atmosphere, like on songs like the Burzum song En Ring Till I Herska. And you know, it's dreamy and there's screechy vocals and everything, but it's really emotive. I was listening to this the other day when I was traveling somewhere, like running an errand. Yeah, just on public transport, and I thought, wow, this is really good. It's underrated, and you can just tell by the song titles. It's obviously Burzum worship, like the Black Sea to Suffer, the Isle of Enchantment, Throne of a Dying Essence, Wretchedness, As Night Falls, Fallen in Decay. But yeah, really good. If you like Burzum, definitely check this band out. I don't think it's around anymore, and it was created by a guy called Arathorn. So the entity was Nocturnal, but his stage name was Arathorn, so that's Nocturnal. Okay. Up next, another band from Canberra. This is PSYCHRIST with Debauching the Minions. So PSYCHRIST, they are an Australian black death band, so it's like death metal crossing over with black metal. And I think with the first album, Embrace Rapture and Disgust, that had more of a black metal aesthetic, but this one is where the death metal influence started coming in a bit more, and it's very ferocious, relentless, a great album. To me, to be honest, I do prefer Embrace Rapture and Disgust, especially that song, The Abysmal Fiend. So if you haven't heard that song, check it out. That would be a good introduction to this band. So PSYCHRIST with Debauching the Minions, sort of like classic old school Australian black metal from back in the day. All right. Okay, up next. This is a band that's been talked about a lot. This is STRIBORG with A Procession of Lost Souls. So, if you're not familiar, I'm sure a lot of people are. STRIBORG is a one-man black metal project from Australia, from Tasmania. I found out about this band actually when I watched that one-man metal documentary, you know, which features this band, Zaster and Leviathan. Great documentary, and that's what really got me inspired to check this band out. I've been a fan for a few years. If you're not familiar, it's kind of like very atmospheric, forest-oriented black metal, quite minimalist, but it's got this ambient quality as well, and it's very much to do with the worship of nature and the aesthetics of nature. But if you've never been to Tasmania, like I have, you know, just the environment and the scenery, it's like really magical and ethereal, so it's the perfect setting, I think, for a black metal band. So yeah, he's put out several releases, and it's actually no longer black metal. He's sort of moved over into dark wave and synth wave with a lot of electronic music, but he's retained elements of the black metal vocals, and it's still quite, you know, pessimistic and everything. But I think it's interesting that he's doing something different, because he pumped out a lot of black metal albums, so I think he probably thought time for a change. But really good band, and I've got to check out more of his newer stuff. By the way, I've got quite a few albums by STRIBORG, so I'm not sure if people are interested. I could make a special video just showing my STRIBORG collection, but let me know what you think. But anyway, STRIBORG with A Procession of Lost Souls from Tasmania. All right. Okay, up next. This is Volatile with Quarantine. So I spoke about this one in Australian Metal Gems as well. This was given to me by my friend Greg, actually. So very nice, thanks a lot. And basically what you have here, it's sort of death grind, but like a death metal mixed with grind. Later on they became more sort of comical, and it was very grind oriented. But this release here, there's still a lot of slower songs, and there's emphasis on the death metal element. But yeah, just really good sort of just underground, dark death metal done the old school way. So that's great. Volatile with Quarantine. Okay, 2 more to go. All right, up next we have VOMITOR with Pestilent Death. So I mentioned this in a collection update about a year ago. VOMITOR is a black thrash band, again from Victoria, or I think from Melbourne, and it features, who was the guy? Marcus Hellcunt from Bestial Warlust, and a couple of other members, I think people who were also in Anatomy. So, you know, in that Melbourne Victorian scene, there's a lot of bands and musicians which collaborate. But yeah, if you like bands such as Destroyer 666, you'll like this, you know, just like down and dirty, chugging, thrashy, black thrash, really good. Some of my favorite, I think my favorite song on this is Roar of War, like very catchy rhythm and riff in that. But yeah, that's VOMITOR with Pestilent Death. And last one for today, appropriate way to finish off. This is Under the Southern Cross. This is an Australian metal compilation which came out in 1999. This is how I actually discovered a lot of the bands I've shown today. It was through this compilation which compelled me to check them out. Yeah, it's just showcasing some of Australia's extreme metal bands at the peak of the 90s. So it's got tracks by Nazul, Misery, Psychor, Alchemist, Destroyer 666, Deadspawn, Volatile, Bloodduster, Anatomy, Sith Lord, Cryogenic, Damaged, Automation, Crucible of Agony, Earth, Sadistic Execution, classic band, Lord Chaos, PSYCHRIST, BALTAK, Abortus, Armored Angel, Rock, ASTRIAAL, Sulcus, Engraved, Miscreation, Eboli, Deluge, Manticore, and Dungeon. Whew! So, 30 tracks on this, 30 different bands. It's awesome. I really like it. It's very nostalgic for me, and as I said, it led me to discover a lot of these bands, and it's got this booklet where it gives each band a write-up. So yeah, if you're curious you don't know where to start with Australian metal, this would be a good compilation to start with, just to sample some of the famous bands. Although, as I said, this is from the 90s, so obviously a lot of newer bands have come out, but I'm not the most up-to-date guy. Yeah, and this artwork was done by Reverend Chris Hades of Sadistic Execution, so that's Under the Southern Cross. Okay guys, so that's it for this video. Thanks very much, Frederick, for coming up with the idea. I think it was really fun to do. Just a quick show and tell of my Australian metal releases. I think I've included everything now, so tell me, what do you guys think of these bands? If you have any comments, suggestions, just let me know, and make sure you go and check out Frederick's channel. So on that note, I'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves, and bye.